Okay, so those imperial planners want me to think what exactly about Chavez? Is he is going to what, invade us or what?
Well, I mean, yeah, he's a tin-plated dictator, and he's going to be he's probably the Hitler of the month by now. There's this, whichever dictator is next on the bombing list, he becomes the Hitler of the month, and there are big hysterical headlines. You read them in the newspaper every time Chavez buys a couple dozen surplus MiG fighter jets from Russia, anticipating an American attack. Oh, he's going to use those to invade his neighbors. He's going to, and of course, this sort of rhetoric, it's just like Hitler. Well, today he's invading Czechoslovakia. Tomorrow he'll be in position to invade France. Like, well, today Hugo Chavez is going to invade his neighbors. Tomorrow it'll be our neighbors, and on Tuesday it'll be his troops will be crossing into Texas.
And that's what they really think.
Most of them, probably not. That's what they want us to think.
That's what they want us to think. That's what they want you to think. People listening to this show here. So maybe you could describe exactly how suicidal he would have to be to try to invade Texas. Is there any chance in hell that he would, even if he had the ability to even plan out such a thing?
Look at the current technology we have with fighter jets. You need a carrier to take those long distance, as far as I can tell. You need a platform. I don't know that you can take them across that far. Can you really?
I'm not an expert on military tactics,
but additionally, obsolete weaponry really isn't going to do much against our top of the line stuff that we have here.
He's really just building enough of a military that he can defend his country, especially if. And there have been a couple of incidents, primarily coming from the U.S. client state in Colombia, which is probably the biggest, most horrific human rights violator in the hemisphere. And of course, the policy in Washington is basically to give them every gun and bomb and aircraft they need under the premise of fighting the drug war. But basically, there have been incursions that have involved Colombian military killing people on Venezuelan soil. And Chavez has tried to be very diplomatic with them, but obviously they would be kind of a key proxy army to fighting a U.S. war against Venezuela, too. And he's got to defend himself. He's got to defend his country against that.
Well, that's the whole reason that the American government funds Colombia, is to hopefully subvert some of Chavez's gains that he's made there, I would think.
I would say now is probably a good time to bring up some of the coups that the United States has sponsored in Latin America, just to get a sort of background of why it is that people think they need to defend their countries there.
Well, it's just
he ended a news station. You hear, because they dared to criticize him. You know that, right?
Because they actively fought for the overthrow of his government, and then after his supporters reinstalled him into power, they preferred to show soap operas instead of his news conference. And after that happened, he waited very patiently several years as they continued spouting just downright treasonous rhetoric until their contract expired, and then he decided not to renew it. And they still exist, I think, as a satellite network, and as I think they have some radio connections. Well, I'm not going to let you be a TV network anymore. But really, people across the political spectrum in this country who've sort of drank the imperial Kool-Aid are all just like, oh, this is an assault on democracy. This is an assault on freedom of expression. But as Noam Chomsky put it, imagine for a minute if the President of the United States was overthrown in a coup by his generals, as CBS cheerleaded the generals. And then when the president was reinstalled by popular upheaval, CBS decided to keep showing the football game instead of the president's welcome back speech. Now, would the President of the United States wait 2 years for CBS's contract to expire, Or would he have all of the managers of that TV station lined up against a wall and shot? Let me ask you, who has more respect for democratic principles of free speech here?
Well, back to the election.
And then we did get on quite a sidetrack here.
Back to the election. If you look at the Democratic Party, you look at the other parties, the Green Party, the Independents, Nader. Is there any point in voting for those other parties versus the Democratic Party? I mean, is any party really going to have? Are they really going to affect how we live, how society is organized?
I think to deal with that question, you have to address how the electoral system actually operates.
Is voting for Nader just as much of selling out?
Do you want to keep going on that line?
Well, how does it operate?
How does it operate?
Yeah.
Well, without getting too deep into a civics lesson here, the most important thing to keep in mind about the political system is that these two parties are both over 150 years old, and they've been conspiring together for a very long time to make sure no one else gets a piece on the playing field. And obviously one of the big problems I have with the Green Party, for instance, is very much their emphasis on electoral tactics. Because, they just don't. They're not equipped to fight an even fight with the Republicans and the Democrats, and that's just the way the system works. And I'm trying to think of an analogy, but I don't really have a real nice one to offer.
I don't really see much of a point in throwing a vote away in protest when the other parties that I would be throwing my vote away to don't represent what I want to be done either. So what's the point?
I would counter that rhetorically by asking, and if you vote for a corporatist, supposed lesser evil like the Democrats, aren't you just throwing your vote away there too?
Yeah, like I said, I didn't really go to vote for the presidential election because I don't think it's basically rigged by the two-party system. There's no point in even voting. I thought whoever I voted for was basically throwing my vote away.
I would say
I don't have any faith in parties. I don't believe in the ability of a party to really liberate humanity from coercive things like capitalism and really affect things that I care about, like animal rights and things like that. Does Nader? Well, what's his platform? Is he going to really just change things that much, or is he basically just mentioning that we're going to have a more democratic society? It's basically